Formal one, Elise. Thank you for being part of the symposium. I really find it scripted, and I always have had an issue with that. You're having a conversation with someone, and suddenly in the middle of it, you get a little formal and all that. So anyway, no, it's always a pleasure speaking to you, and of
You too.
course, thank you for being part of this. Now, how do you want to go about it? You know what I need to do. I need to tell us about what we do.
Yeah, well, let's have you do your thing, and then I'll do my intro, and I'll do my PowerPoint, and then apparently you get to have an extra 30 minutes just interviewing me, because
never say interview. Like I always
30 minutes on to me.
I always say conversations and never an interview. It's always a conversation.
Yeah, it's a conversation.
Okay, so this is what we're doing. Mediation legislation, the how, what, when, where, which, who, why of it. And I don't know whether you've got to see some of these sessions, but they've been really nice. A lot of good thoughts have come from there. So that's what we're doing, Elyse. Now, at some point of time, of course, you have to tell us about yourself and then a little bit about the work I'm doing, and we can have a little discussion. We have extra time, so we can spend some time on that. So please, Elyse, about you.
All right, me first then. So I am Elyse Salley. I live in Central Florida. I'm a board certified behavior analyst, and I've turned into a mediator now, or I guess I've always been a mediator, but now I'm doing mediation work. So family mediation specifically. I have been going through that credentialing process, which I know you can't stand, Vikram, but so what I will say has been beneficial is that I've gotten to, just in these past few weeks, watch 8 mediations with different mediators. So I'm getting to see a lot of different styles and a lot of different things that are going on in mediation. And with that, what I always like to do is see where the problems are and how we can solve them. That's just something I always like to be doing. What else about me? I'm doing the PhD in conflict analysis and resolution. That will probably be another 5 years or so. So it'll be a while before that's done. I have 2 kids. My son Eric is about to be 6 next month, and my daughter Victoria is 2. And as Vikram knows, I'm sure a lot of other people, if you saw me on the last symposium, that I've been going through my own paternity case, which just means that I'm going through a custody or divorce case just without the marriage. So that's been an eye-opening thing for me, and one of the reasons why I got into family mediation.
I think that part of it, of course, I think maybe you should speak about your experience there and how you looked at this court system and what you felt were issues there. I don't know if you want
to.
Oh
no, I definitely will, and I can. I've got a PowerPoint. It's a lot less educational this time. It's more of a discussion. So it's going to be a free form discussion, even if people are, listening now and want to type into the chat or whatever. It's for, it's for everyone to be involved.
What I want to put up is I want to put this up for discussion purpose, because that's also important. Let's put this up. Let's find out about this. What's happening here?
Okay, you're on the desktop version too. That's my favorite version. So I actually just completed that last night. My friend's the one who made it, and had it ready for the launch today. That's so funny that you're putting it on the screen. So this is my new company, Serenity Mediation. I'm going to be doing family mediations. At some point, I'll probably be doing dependency, but not for a while. And my goal with this is to make mediation less of a litigation feel and more of a peaceful, we can we can do this, we can get through this conflict, we don't have to bite each other's heads off. Just a healthier approach is what I would like to see. So I also do guardian ad litem services, which if you go to services, that's on there as well. And then just about me presentations, I've got today's on there, and then passion projects. I also do volunteer dependency guardian ad litem for Seminole County. I'm going to start that soon. And then also I'm still doing some behavior analytic work, just as far as assessments and behavior plans, but that will be on the side now, and that will start to phase out the more mediations that I get.
So we
and
have
then the references. Yeah. Go ahead. No, I need to add you to the references page actually as well.
Please. But the important thing is that the Serene Elyse is going to do a lot of serenity work. So that's
I hope to. I really hope to. And what I keep hearing recently going through this process is that everyone is saying all of the mediations are virtual now. No one wants to have mediations in person. But then I also hear that mediations in person can be more successful. And I have this vision that I want to have a space to be able to do these mediations if people do want to do them in person, where it's calming, it's kind of like my home would be. So, nature and salt lamps and things like that, and nice scents and snacks and drinks for people to just feel comfortable.
Tell me something, Elyse. Why not sit here and do the mediation? Why are we stuck in boxes and closed spaces? Mediations should happen right here, sitting right here.
You mean on our screens, on our computers?
No, in that space that is that picture there, wherever that picture is taken, sit out there and do it.
Right, I agree.
So I think we have to. I did have a discussion in the World Mediators Conference about bringing people under the tree. This whole concept of mediation room, mediation table, since it makes it sound really formal, and I mean this is a deal-making kind of a thing. We have to go beyond that. So it has to be that informality in every way. I mean, they should not get that feeling also that this is something which is a process they're going into. It's their process wherever they're comfortable. But of course, online has helped. I mean, online in that sense is of course very good. At least they're in their own comfortable space. But sometimes we feel that it's a comfortable space, but maybe it's not very comfortable for them. They want to get out of that space.
Right.
So I think we should
I'll have to gauge it. I mean, I'm going to start it online only, and then I'll gauge how people are feeling and what they're wanting. And if there is a desire to have a space for this, then I would hope to, in maybe a year or less than a year, who knows what's going to happen then.
Let it let it develop organically. That's a good idea.
Right.
So Elyse, now you have to do the other job that you have to do. You have to tell us about Mediator, Vikram.com. Of course, if you've ever gone there, but what all is really happening? What kind of stuff have you watched? What
okay, you're going to have me talk about it?
Yes.
I'm going to promote Vikram. I'd be happy to promote you, Vikram. Vikram is a wonderful human being, and he is an advocate and a mediator and a golfer and a father and all of these things. And he puts so much of his time into us and promoting mediation and trying to shape mediation into something that can be a worldwide thing. And here's Ken, of course. Ken is a huge part of mediation. I'm not sure if he's listening in. I know it's pretty early in California now. So he's doing, I guess he just did the book on magic and mediation. Has it come out yet?
No, it's coming out in the fall.
It hasn't come out yet.
In the fall.
Okay. But you're starting the magic and mediation and also doing the mediation circles. So we are in different circles depending on where we are geographically. So like the American circle and the Indian circle and, whatever else have you. Yeah, and then this is your wonderful website. You show us where you are. You have all of your YouTube videos on here. If you're a patron, which is actually less expensive than Netflix, I think you should tell people, then you're able to be a part of this network and do presentations as well.
Thank you very much for being a patron, Elyse. That's really nice of you. And please talk about it because Indrani is calling. She's had a session after yours. Let me just check.
Okay, so the website. I don't know. I don't think he can move it anymore, but
no, I can keep moving it. She's just calling. Maybe she doesn't have the link or something. I'll just talk to her. But you can talk about the World Mediation Circle. Please talk about that.
So the World Mediation Circle, at least what Vikram and I have talked about so far, is how we're going to start mediation earlier, how we're going to start it younger. So when he kind of gave me the idea of schools, and then with that, I was thinking my son's school. And then my next thought process was, how cool would it be if I were to host some kind of, what is it called where they have at schools, you sit in the auditorium and you watch something. So if I did some sort of presentation at my son's school about peacemakers or peace builders. So let's say each teacher had picked out a peacemaker or two in their classrooms, and then these people were presented with some sort of award that says I'm the peacemaker of the year or the peacemaker of the month or something. And then additionally, if some of the older kids could put on maybe a skit of what it looks like to have two or more people in a dispute and then another outside participant who's helping to do that. So I just think that would be a really cool idea. Obviously, it's going to be something organic, like Vikram said with the website. I can't just force it to happen right now. I think I do need those credentials behind me and some business experience before I get something like that moving. So probably next school year, I know I'm going to become one of the, like the PTA supporters. So this is something that I'll be thinking about for next year for our world circles.
So Indrani
Are you
was just
back?
saying, yeah, no, good. Yeah, but Indrani basically has some power, I think there's load shedding or something happening there. So she's saying I might not be on camera, kind of thing. So that's okay, perfectly all right. They have an issue sometimes of this electricity thing. So okay, we've done this. This is something which we need to develop. Lots of work here, which is what the idea was for April. It was that, but then this was a discussion that I really wanted, because I'm seeing that the direction that legislation is taking, the lot of self-interest and vested interests which are taking into a certain direction, which won't be good for the mediation that I would want and you would want to develop. It won't be good for that. It will become one of those things that just people are going to make money out of it. The training institutes, the institutions. I mean, it's amazing the kind of things I'm hearing. I mean, imagine in some countries that you have to go through an institution.
Right.
And obviously the scale of places is going to be very different. I mean, India is going to be so different from a country which has only 60 million people. I mean, you don't compare 1.4 billion people with that, but when you have to talk to the legislators, you say, oh, it's happening in that country. Okay, let's do this. And of course, they don't know much about it. So, okay, let's try it. These are not trial and error things. You're actually doing something which will go into a certain direction, getting it back from there. We don't know what's going to happen. So those are issues that have come up, but I influence your discussion. So
no, it's okay. I think you and I share a lot of the same issues, and that is how it is here as well. Unless you are certified by the Supreme Court of Florida, you can mediate, but you cannot send that case off to the court to then have that case completed. So I don't understand why we're so obsessed with being in court all the time.
Yeah.
Why can't people just go and work with a person to resolve the conflict? And it doesn't have to be a court case. It can just be, we'll put some sort of agreement in writing, the participants can have it, and so be it. If it escalates, then it escalates, but not everything has to be litigation.
Exactly. I think that the other thing that I've been talking about during the symposium is the fact that the people who do legislate, the legislators themselves, they don't need any qualifications, certifications, training, any of these things. Because look, it's perfectly all right, because in a democracy, you should be able to choose whom you want. No one should limit it, because then that whole concept of limiting it, someone will decide who you limit. So that'll become an issue. So same thing with this. It's a trust. Whoever I trust to be my representative in the country or in the state or wherever, I should be allowed to choose that person. And the same thing applies for mediators. It's my trust in the person. No one can ever tell me whom I should trust. I mean, it's really, and you can't limit it, because then your limiting it will be based on who you want to limit, and then vested interest will come in, which is already happening. Who is going to certify those people? So you have a institution developed to actually do that. And then obviously someone's making money out of it, and then the corruption happens. I mean, I'm just looking at the scale of things. I'm just putting it out into that direction. So which is not the best of things for something like this, not for mediation. For other things, I'm not going to comment on it. Everything will be different. But at least mothers also, next, I keep saying, next stage, you start certifying mothers. So those are issues with cover, but I won't take away your time. Please, Elyse, it's about mediation legislation. Please take us through.
Yes, a little bit. I started with mediation legislation, and the more I thought of it, the more I got on multiple soapboxes of mine, and then watched some others, and another soapbox, and I get so passionate about these things. So let me share my screen. We will do the PowerPoint.
Yes.
Okay. I saw someone yesterday who was having an issue with this. I hope I don't have the same issue.
I think she was sharing the screen and not that PowerPoint, where she'd opened that. I think that was where the issue for her was.
Yeah. So does that look normal? You can't see.
Yeah. Perfect.
Okay.
Perfect.
Okay, so this is mediation versus litigation, because I did start getting a little heated making this one. And I put the, excuse me, the V period there on purpose for all the legal buffs. That's how they write the cases, like Roe versus Wade or whatever it is. And then the rocks, because I have the Serenity in the background. And this I wanted to start with. This is my grandmother. She is 94 years old. She lives in Sarasota, Florida, which is out by Michael Lang. And I just lost why I wanted to talk about her. I wanted to talk about her because our lives are so different and our experiences are so different, where she's never worked. You know, she just somehow came from money, you know, money that just exists, and then had a husband in the military, and after he passed, she's, you know, she just lives. So my life is completely different from hers, where I've been working since I was 16 nonstop. And so we talk on the phone a lot, and she's always just so confused and amazed by my life, asking me like, well, what are you doing now? Like, oh, you've got some new company now, and you've got some new degree now. And it's like, I'm always doing something, and it baffles her. And she does have dementia now. She's actually had it for, I'd say, over 5 years, and it's been a very slow process. So we've all been able to kind of acquaint ourselves with it. And she's one of those people where she's positive all the time. So in spite of dementia, you know, a lot of times you'll hear about people who suffer from intense feelings of anger or sadness. You know, they're crying and they're throwing things and they're not recognizing things around them. And that's just not the case at all with her. Even, you know, in spite of her confusion, she's still positive. So she's been a wonderful person in my life to have. She's like my number one supporter. She has no idea actually what I do or what my life is like, but she's always there rooting me on. And I just wish that everyone had a person like this in their lives, whether it's a family member or a friend or some other loved one. And also, this is my daughter here. This was about 1.5 years ago, so she's 2 now. It looks like she was about 6-7 months there.
Can you imagine, Elyse, 92 years between the two? 92 years, amazing. Can you imagine?
Right.
Yeah.
It is amazing. I didn't get to meet any of my great grandparents. They had already all passed. So I think it's pretty cool that my kids have actually had multiple great grandparents when they were born. They're down to 1 now, just her.
It's nice for them. Yeah, I think it's good for them to have someone.
Yeah. So this is my one spew of legislation and litigation, and then I'm going to go to the discussion. So here I'm going to actually read it off. This Florida Statutes, Chapter 44, Mediation Alternatives to Judicial Action. Mediation means a process whereby a neutral third person, called a mediator, acts to encourage and facilitate the resolution of a dispute between 2 or more parties. It is an informal and non-adversarial process with the objective of helping the disputing parties reach a mutually acceptable and voluntary agreement. In mediation, decision-making authority rests with the parties. The role of the mediator includes, but is not limited to, assisting the parties in identifying issues, fostering joint problem solving, and exploring settlement alternatives. Okay, so that is the backbone of what mediation should be in Florida. It's not a bad definition. You know, some things could be changed, but overall, I'd say it's pretty good definition, and it is not what I have seen in practice. So this is what I have seen in practice. Mandatory mediations. People don't have self-determination. They're mandated either because one party has requested one or the judge has requested one. So you're forced into a mediation. All of a sudden, it's no longer a mediation. That's not what it's supposed to be. No mediation until pretrial. So that means that you could be in court for years, such as in my case, it's been 1.5 years, 220 docket items, no sign of mediation. Endless. The next thing we have is a social investigation coming up. So we will not have some sort of mandated mediation until that trial is set, which could still be years from now. So that's another issue. Mediations should be coming way sooner. Timed mediations. I've been watching a bunch of different circuits do their mediations, and they all have different ways that they do them. But one of them that I was really surprised about, I'm not going to name off specific circuits or anything, but this circuit only allows 2 hours total for a mediation. And so what the mediator does is the first hour is the actual mediation. The second hour is her or him writing up the report. That's tiny. I mean, how are you supposed to do an entire divorce, a marriage settlement and time-sharing agreement and everything within an hour. So that person was telling me that they just try to do what they can, usually just time-sharing, and then the rest of it is sorted out by the court. So then again, even if you're trying to do mediation, say, excuse me, I got a lot of allergies going on today. You're a person who just has a standard wage, so you probably have to do a court-based mediation because they're cheaper, and then that's what you're given, an hour. So that's not great. The average that I've seen is 3 hours for court mediations. And then also discrepancies in mediator and mediation quality. What I mean by that is that if you're having mediations that are different times, you're going to be getting different quality. Additionally, I've been talking to some mediators here, and there is another certain circuit that makes 10% per hour than what private mediators do in the rest of Central Florida. And those people know that. So they know that they're making, I'm just going to give examples, but let's say those people are making $10 an hour. And then the rest of everyone is making, in the private field, in the private sector, is making $100 an hour. Who do you think is going to have more motivation to be a better mediator? I mean, I hate to say it because we would all like to think, we just do everything from the bottom of our hearts and the goodness of our hearts, but that's not always the case. You have to meet your basic needs before you can help others. That's the Maslow's hierarchy. So unless you already have those basic needs established by, you're supported by a family member, you already have your food and your necessities and your housing, your shelter and your safety. Maybe in that case, you can mediate and make $10 an hour and be happy about it. The rest of us, we need money as a general reinforcer in order to establish all of those needs first. And we wouldn't survive as a race if we helped others only before ourselves. It doesn't work like that. So in that circumstance, I do see different quality. I mean, people get burned out. And I don't blame them. Also, litigation is easier than mediation. It's so much easier to sit back and say, I don't care, let the attorneys set it out. I hate this person. I never want to see them again. It's so much easier to give up than it is to agree with someone, to have some kind of resolution with them, to have a dialogue with them. It's easier to hide behind that lawyer or even to hide behind court than it is to settle what you started. And then also attorneys dominate the field. So I did some searches and move this thing again. This is what came up. I obviously took out any kind of identifying information, but I just typed.
Yeah, okay, no, now the slide came in. There was a delay. Yeah.
Okay, so I just typed in what typical, people would type in: custody near me. Most people don't know that we've switched to the word time sharing. So divorce near me. One of the first things that came up was, do I need an aggressive divorce attorney? Looking for an aggressive divorce attorney in Orlando, lawyers should be advocates and aggressively represent you, not start fights at your blah, blah, blah. And then we have custody near me. What I wanted to show on this one is law firm, PA, 20 plus family lawyers nearby. So we are dominated by attorneys. They're making tons of money. They're making, I don't know if I should say, but they're making disgusting amounts of money. And some of them do mediations. Of course, I don't want to say all attorneys. Some attorneys that I've met and know are wonderful. They're wonderful people. They let their clients speak and, have their self-determination. But I've also seen some where they don't even allow their clients to speak in mediations. So this is another issue that we have. We are, we're not out there, and I don't know how we're going to get out there. But I think it's something that needs to happen. I'd like to have my website pop up when people type in divorce and custody so I can help. How did we get here? I haven't been around a long time. I'm only 34, so I don't know how this country became how it is, my first memory of it was the coffee. The woman who spilled the coffee sued the company and was awarded almost $3 million for something that she did. And I feel like everyone at that point then saw, oh my gosh, I want money too. Let me blame somebody else for my own faults, and then I can get money. So this was an article that I was looking at by Ramsmeyer and Rasmussen in 2013. Said Americans sue more frequently than citizens do elsewhere, as evidenced by its per capita litigation rates. This chapter asks whether Americans are beset with litigation crisis. I would have to say absolutely. That's what it seems like. I know my view is a little different from others since I'm in it now and I'm seeing litigation, but it seems like people are enjoying this style of life. I have to keep moving our faces. Hold on. Okay, so must everything be a case? I know we kind of touched on this earlier. So why can't we just have informal mediations that create agreements retained in private? I'm not sure why we don't. And people that have all these cases say maybe someone does want to settle a bunch of disputes and they do it the way that the way that it's to be done in this system. You go about it through the court. Say you go to mediations over and over again. It's still showing that you have a bunch of cases. And then these cases are on your record. So you're being looked down upon for having cases. Even if you were the one that was trying to sort something out, you're still showing that you've been in court for whatever reason. And people are looking these up. I've got my example here, that application rejected. Other things you apply to, they're going to be seeing that. Even if you're trying to date, people will search your court file and see this is a super litigious person. I want nothing to do with them. So I think I want to bring this back. I discussed this in your last symposium too. This is our emotion wheel. So I feel like the causes of litigation instead of mediation are some of those basic emotions: anger, fear, sadness, and disgust. Those are our primary emotions. And those are very intense emotions. And I think I have, yeah, that bounces out. So I feel like people are engaging in the litigation because they are experiencing these intense emotions. They don't know how to cope with them in a healthy way, and they are then projecting them. And I feel like these are some of the things that we should enact. I feel like this is a problem that has a pretty steady, stable root system, and we need to get at the roots rather than just focusing on what we can see. So family counseling prior to marriage. They do have something like that in the state, but it's an online thing that you can just click through really quickly and not learn anything. So, you learn what you choose to learn. But actual family counseling where you're talking to people. Family counseling at conception, you find out you're pregnant, great. Whether you're going to do it alone or you're going to do it with a partner, I think it would be a huge idea, a great idea to have some sort of counseling, some sort of support. Family counseling and postpartum depression risk assessments after birth. A lot of people do suffer from postpartum depression and sometimes don't even know it. And then family counseling prior to divorce. I think there is also something that's already in place about there is a course that you have to go through in order to get divorced, but again, it's an online course that you don't have to learn anything from. So I think counseling is important to us. We spend so much time at doctors. Why can't we make counseling such as how we do medical doctors? Our minds are no less important than our bodies. Some may even say our minds are more important than our bodies. The healthier your mind is, the healthier you can treat your body, the better you can experience life. So this is what I wanted to end with, is what's next? I talked about a bunch of issues. I tried not to be too negative about it, but where do we go from here? And it's not something that one person can say or even a few people can say. It's something that all of us have to come up with together. We're all equally valuable beings who should be treated as such. And so that's my contact information. If you want, anyone wants to get a hold of me, I'd be happy to talk to you. So I guess
it, Elyse. That's it.
Exactly. I
no,
planned
that's
that.
not it. That's not it.
And now you're gonna now you just get 30 more minutes to do whatever you want.
Okay, so we'll start from this. Let's look at, after all this experience, of course, you're actually part of the system and you're going through all that. How would you look at the legislation? How would you want to structure legislation? What are your thoughts there?
I don't have fully formed thoughts yet. I know I have heard some other people saying that there should be standards in place in order to choose mediators, but not as many as there currently are. Like us, we have to go through that Supreme Court certification. That's quite a hefty standard. You're taking a class that's 40 hours. It's like $1,000. And then you're observing all of these mediations, which also takes hours and hours of your time where you're not getting paid. So it does, that requires a certain type of individual and a certain, aspect of their lives that's able to do something like that. Not everyone is able to take off that much time from work or to spend that much money. So I think it is important to open it a little more. I'm not sure how we would actually do that. I feel like I'm going to have more thoughts about it when we do the mediation circles, when I think more about schools, because, it's going to be important to start young and to start a transition young, where it becomes a way of life rather than a profession.
Yep. That's part of, about that. We discussed that topic in the conference, World Mediators Conference, profession or way of life. We actually had a discussion on that. But now look at it from outside the court system. Of course, in the court system, they have all these requirements, but outside the court system, you have to tell us that it's not legislated. Anyone can be a mediator. You have to tell us that part of it also.
Outside of the court system? You mean how it would work if it weren't legislated?
It does work that way. It's not regulated outside. Outside the court system, there is no such requirement as to what your qualifications or certifications have to be.
Right, but I've never seen that in practice. I don't even hear about that. I think it should become in practice. I mean, I have a neighbor that I'm in an apartment building, so I share some walls, and I have a neighbor that has dogs that will bark every time they're not home, throughout the night if they're not home. And I've tried so hard to talk to her on a person-to-person level. I've left notes, I've knocked, but they don't answer. And I feel like those types of disputes should be able to be mediated by anyone. Why not?
But which is what the case is. Look, why I'm asking you to tell us this is because I obviously keep saying this, but in the US and all these years, that aspect has not been, there is no legislation to actually say that you have to be a certain, or whatever qualification or anything. Anyone can be a mediator outside the court system, as I understand. If it's different, you please tell me.
Yes, except that I have absolutely no experience with mediators outside the court system. I don't even know where they exist.
Which is, I think it's important that you're saying, because the thing is, a lot of people give this example saying, okay, the US, this is happening. And I mean, in the US, they say things are good. Yes, I mean, we had someone, I think the day before yesterday, who said in the US, things have happened it took 30 years, but things are happening there. And this is what I have to point out to people, that on the ground, actually, do you really see people going to mediators? Or is it that they're experiencing mediation because of the court system only? And of course, with the control of the lawyers on the system itself. So I've spoken about it so much. I want you to say that.
Yes, no, I'm saying it. I don't see it anywhere else. And I almost feel like I missed a slide in there, because I know I had spoken about client control, where I was listening to an attorney who told the mediator, or maybe it was the other attorney, I don't know how much client control you have over your client. What do you mean? The participants are supposed to be speaking and doing this themselves.
That's what I'm saying. This has to be put out.
I understand. I've only seen litigation in, the legal system.
because I'm telling you, this is so important to put out there, because a lot of countries are wanting to maybe follow the US example, not knowing what is really happening there. This is not today. It's been 2 years now. Okay, the 2 years back, that the symposium that I did on mediation in our culture and traditions. If you watch those sessions, every session I spoke about this. I said, look at the US situation. You say about the fact that mediation is happening there and all. Just dig a little deeper. Lawyers have control of that. It is still being filed. 100 million cases filed in courts every year. That route is being, a route, as you would say it, that route is being taken, go into court, go into mediation, lawyers controlling the whole thing, mediators getting nothing, like you said, very small amount, maybe 10% of what they would normally get, getting that, getting disillusioned, moving out, the mediators move out, lawyers stay there, they keep making their money. That is not the way we want mediation to go. And
Yeah.
100 million cases are going into courts in a 300 million population. India has 1.4 billion population. If we ever go that situation, we only have 18 million matters going into courts here every year. Can you imagine? In 1.4
Mm-hmm.
billion people.
Wow.
If we went through this proportion in terms of the population, if we had 400 million matters going into court, can you imagine today we have 50 million matters pending in court? Imagine what our situation would be. So we cannot go the US way. We have to,
No.
I mean, I have to keep telling people this, but again, vested interests want to take it that way. It's going to,
Right.
lawyers are not going to let it develop up till they don't have control over it. It's going to be as simple as that.
I feel like if another country even tried to model what we're doing right now, the society would collapse in on itself, because your court system isn't even, that deep. I feel like it's deep in our heart, and just
No.
so much anger.
Yeah. So we have to put this out is really important, because if we really want, look, finally, it's also about the mediators. It's not only about mediation. Like I said, mediation is happening. Yes, you've gone into the court. The lawyers are taking you into mediation. It's like a settlement conference that I would call it. I don't really call that mediation. That happens, settlement happens, and that's it. That's your experience of mediation. You're never going to tell anyone about mediation in the good way, because
Mm-hmm.
you went through it in a way that it wasn't your process. So it's just going
Right.
to, the word of mouth won't happen. If word of mouth doesn't happen, definitely work is not going to happen outside the court system. Like you said, I mean, if you have to think of a mediator outside the court system, you can't really think of who's doing it, because they're not. Because they're not.
Mm-hmm.
That is really not happening. Look, one issue is that, again, that colonial concept that you have a dispute, you go to a lawyer. We
Right.
have to find ways to, of course, stop that, and that, of course, comes from conditioning of the mind over all these hundreds of years. So, of course, the world mediation circle part of it, that let's start young if we can, that conditioning doesn't happen. And of course, legislation for me has to be simple. I mean, you cannot control anything other than give benefits to the user. You don't take away from the user, you give them. That's
Mm-hmm.
which I've said so many times about the confidentiality without prejudice, mediator not being called in as a witness, simple things that you have to protect for the user. Beyond
Right.
that, don't do anything else where the user's self-determination goes away. And this is supposed to be your presentation, Elyse. Why am I the one? You have to tell.
Because I'll tell you why. Because you told me 9:30 to 10. And so I made a 30-minute presentation. And then you sprung that extra half an hour on me. So now you just get to ask me whatever you want.
You have to tell. Look. These are thoughts that I put out. I mean, there's so many times I put these thoughts out. But looking at all that, I mean, how much do you agree on? How much do you think what other things should be out there in terms of legislation? Then, I mean, on the 19th, we are going to sit and talk about what model legislation kind of a thing. So, thoughts about it, because finally, we have to consider that mediators themselves are able to develop this Maslow's need hierarchy theory. Part of it is very important, because up to those basic needs are not met, you're not going to get into it full time. And if you're not getting it into full time, either you're getting frustrated in a system which you don't want to be part of. Say, the lawyers who have the passion, if you have to on any day of your life have to go into a court, and you don't have that mindset, you have a mediator mindset, every day of your life you are getting frustrated, because this is not what you just want to reach out to the others, like, come on, what are you doing? That's just it. You want to do that,
Right.
but you can't do it. So those people who are not lawyers, they have that mindset, they want to create that culture, the atmosphere around themselves, are not being able to do it because, of course, they have to, that livelihood aspect of it has to come in. So we are missing out on so many good people who could be part of the, I mean, doing good things in society. So
Yeah.
valuing mediators, I think, is the most important part that I feel no one's looking at. I think mediators have not been considered in the entire scheme of things.
Yeah, I don't know about that. I haven't really heard about that, but I think you and I seem to agree on pretty much everything. And you have a sort of an inside view of my transition into being a mediator because you kind of picked me off really early, still before I had even started the company. So you get to see the evolution
Evolution,
and be
yes.
a part of it. You know, you get to work in Florida through me.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I agree with everything that you just said. I'm like I said earlier, I'm not sure how to change it. It's something that I'm going to have to be thinking on regularly. I know that right now my favorite mediations are those with people without attorneys, because I feel like you can actually talk to them and get to them and have them come up with something. But if it's the attorney, it's almost like a wall. Most of them, not even most of them, let me say half of them from what I've seen in the past 3 weeks, I'll say half of them. But the ones that are walls, you know, they are impenetrable walls. They will not even allow their people to speak. And that is not mediation. I'm not sure what that's called, but it's not mediation.
Well, that's you have to put this out because this is something that, because this is a user's experience, which doesn't really come out because you don't get their feedback. Like I said, they finish and they're out of it. But if people, someone wants to put in, like Lisa Velline Thomas is on, could put some comments on YouTube. Of course,
Yeah.
hey everyone is, of course, good luck and everything. But she said, good point, Elyse. Litigation is easier than mediation. So that part of it, I think everyone understands that, and it shouldn't be that way. It shouldn't be
Right.
that way.
Right. Because there are so many downsides to the litigation. I mean, the cost alone. People are spending, if it's a highly litigious case, say you're spending 100,000 per year that you're in a case. And very few people have that sort of money. That is not the general population that's carrying around money like that. Not even close.
Yeah. And then also in places like India, you do hear people having to sell their land because once you've been put into that litigation, I mean, imagine you sell off something that you're going to earn your livelihood from, and you have to sell it off because now you're into the system, and the
Right.
system is going to eat everything out of you. It's the lawyers and everything else that
Mhm.
goes around it. So
Yep.
those are things, I don't know. I mean, this has been happening for tens of years, but still it just goes on because the people who take you through that
Mhm.
process have so much of a control. Imagine in countries where legislation has been attempted and lawyers have, I mean, if not haven't been taken into that, I think it hasn't, they haven't let it function, and they have had to be taken into account in legislation, that in some places a lawyer has to be sitting in that mediation. I mean,
Mhm.
why this is, I mean, either you too much under pressure from lawyers because this is not their process. To even say that a lawyer has to be present in a mediation, it means there is some major control they have on the judicial system as such, or on the government's. So I think that part of it, how do you have to do something about that aspect. I think finally for me it has to come from the people. We have
Right.
to,
I agree.
and that is not going to be easy because of the fact that, one, of course, they're into that whole web, that other web, this web of mediation circles on one side, and the web of all the what has happened with the judicial system and the lawyers and everything. To be able to get them out of
Mhm.
that is it's going to be a lot of work because, of course,
It
it's not.
is. That's why I really like your idea of starting young. And that's why I was thinking of, you know, how did we get here? Why do we even have so many disputes in this country? That means that we don't have any conflict resolution skills. We're not learning it in school, or we're not learning it from our parents. And so we just assume that this is how it's supposed to be. And I
So,
think that that's a core issue right there, is that we have so many conflicts that we don't know how to figure out on our own.
look, I spoke about this, and this is also connected to the mediation circle, is that communities themselves are broken down. throughout the world. And there are various reasons to it, and everywhere there will be maybe different reasons. But the social structure has definitely changed over time. And one is, of course, materialism coming into society over time, and that part of it seeps in and has seeped in into various places. Some places not as much, and some places a little too much. So all that has affected the structure of society. So the people with the mediator mindset and the mediation circle will have a role to play, even bringing communities together,
Mm-hmm.
because that, I think, is somewhere where that foundation has broken down. So you have to then create the foundation, because there is a
Right.
concept of social pressure, a mediation and collaborative, maybe dispute resolution, or being collaborative in general, comes in because you feel part of a community. Otherwise, if you're just individualistic in your approach, why would you want to do that? So creating
Mm-hmm.
that environment, I think that part of it is important. And then again, my three favorite words have to come out everywhere: heart, soul, spirituality. Without them,
Yep.
nothing is complete.
Yep.
So I think
Yeah,
that,
you mentioned collaborative. I know that you're having Dr. Teresa Parnell in a few days.
yeah,
She's very close to me. We're in the same county. You know, we're just 2 cities apart. So I'm very interested to watch hers and see if she has some of the same thoughts that I have. But
so
I think she focuses a little more on the collaborative process than mediations. But I'm not positive on that.
yeah. So yeah, I think she's been on some, I think, some earlier shows of mine also. I don't know whether you watched any of those. But,
Mm-hmm.
but the important part being that the foundation has to be created, and legislation should not come in the way of doing that, which is where why this discussion is important. Because obviously, if that comes in the way, we can create that whole maybe an ecosystem of people coming together. But if
Mm-hmm.
legislation says that no, you cannot sit together, you cannot sit with so and so, then what are you really doing? You're taking away that basic right of people to choose whom they want to sit with. How do you
Yes.
do that? And how
Yes.
do you get away with it by doing that?
Don't know. I think I really like to think globally and act locally. I'm sure you've heard that throughout your life. And the most I can really think of at this point is to start to enact change locally. You know, hopefully at some point to become a member of the community where I'm known as a mediator and I can speak out and talk about this field and how important it is.
But that was the whole idea, at least about the mediation circles also, because I was looking at the interests of mediators. And I said, now when you go out into communities and you say that I am creating a circle, you're actually bringing them together. So you as a mediator are recognized as someone who, okay, this is what she does. And this is not coming through a court system. It's coming through an
Right.
individual whom we connect to. It has to be connections with the individual. There, even the
Mm-hmm.
community mediation that took happened in the US wasn't successful. I think they do some 400,000 matters in the whole year, which also includes what are court referred. So I mean, look
Mm-hmm.
at it, 100 million on that side, and this is some fundamental issue in the way these things have been structured. Because I think the individuals that though they have I mean, some of them have the mindset, some of them are put into it through a training, and that part of it, that's why I have an issue with that training kind of it. The people who
Mm-hmm.
have that mindset, they connect with the people directly, and that connection by itself will bring them closer to the process, because they connect the person with that process. So that's how I feel that we need to I mean, when you're out there and you're talking to them about you being a mediator, they connect with you, and certain work comes in, better work comes in, maybe could be just a basic uh, dog barking issue. But then those people who are in that community obviously are part of various things. They are part of businesses and organizations and everything. So they'll take that culture there. One is the culture, they'll take you there also. So when
Mm-hmm.
I say that every organization should have a mediation circle, then once they've experienced the process and they've connected with you, that's okay. But why don't you do this in my organization? And that process starts. So this
Right.
way you are actually taken to places which you otherwise might not be, because these people obviously are part of various activities. I mean, businesses is one thing, organizations, and maybe if tomorrow,
Yeah.
yeah, we don't know where it will go. Who would want to create something
Right.
like that in their own? Look, let's. I mean, maybe I'm just a little too idealistic, but I just feel that everyone within them wants to connect. It's just that various other factors have come in, and no one to blame.
Yeah.
I mean, this is the way society gets structured, and what the reasons for those are. Maybe 100 years back something happened and that changed something, or 200 years back something happened. So one is sit and analyze all that and say, forget that. Let's not analyze it. Let's connect those people who can immediately connect with it. Then the others will come in when they have to come in. It's okay. It's just if the two of us are there and it's just this circle, that's perfectly all right. We're having a conversation. Someone's listening to us on YouTube right now or LinkedIn. They connect to it. They think, okay, I can connect with these people. They come in, and that's how it grows. And that's why the way whatever I did, that's the way only way it grew. Just
Yeah.
having those conversations. So that's important. Again, global to local. Globally, we're having this conversation. Similar thing you will do locally. You'll have your YouTube channel where you'll be talking about, we'll have conversations with people. And this is again, what, more than 2 years now, which I've been saying that my 1,000 reach 1,000. I mean, you just if you identify 1,000 people with the mediator mindset, and I'm identifying 1,000, they're identifying 1,000, 1,000,000 people are connected to the process. And
Right.
then entire this whole mediation circle and everything. It's not difficult. 1,000 people with a mediator mindset will not be difficult to identify when you're going out into schools and organizations and communities and families. It's not going to be okay. I'm not saying this is to be done in 6 months or 1 year. It can take 2 years. No, not an issue. Because I mean, right now I would have connected with so many people, at least, but to get them to the next stage, that's the difficult part. And this is where this issue comes in, where the basics, a person for their basics have to do so many other things, that to tell them to spend time on creating something, that's why there has to be some income for them from the circle, which is what the idea was. That and I found developing mediation circles in organizations a easier route to get some remuneration out of it, because in that kind of a space people would be willing to pay. Communities, it'll take some time, but yes, that will also happen. It will happen. But at least at some point of time, wasn't it supposed to be your presentation? Why have I taken over? Don't let me take over. Okay, never let me take over. I'll go into this
That's
direction.
what I do. I sit back and I listen and I learn and I watch.
And this is what I do. I just sit back and talk. And I talk. So
That's
okay, so
fine.
okay, let's now look at it from a global perspective, legislation.
Okay.
Because again, local, like you said, local, global. Globally, you want a, a database or a pool of mediators who should be available to anyone, anywhere in the world. Why should Elyse not be a mediator for someone sitting in some other country? Why should borders
True.
come in the way of people sitting and connecting with someone? So,
Right.
so legislation on the global level also has to be as simple. Because if I say there is an issue which is in, say, Greece, and they want to bring you in. Now, in Greece, the situation is that if you want that settlement agreement to be as good as a court decree, you have to do that mediation with a certified mediator. So
Right.
restriction come in, and you have to have lawyers sitting in that process. So immediately you've created an issue there. So you can, of course, look, no one can stop people from sitting with anyone. And of course, that mediation can happen, but it'll be a contract and it'll be enforceable as a contract. But on
Right.
this end, if you want more enforceability of it and you've put restrictions like this, is it right? Because like I said, you're taking away someone's basic right of connecting with someone. So
Do
what
you think there are that many people that would feel comfortable breaking a contract that it needs to be something that's binded?
Absolutely not. And if the process has gone off well, it should not happen at all. But
Right. I mean, we are kind of a rule-based being.
But you'll be very surprised that the way it has been communicated to people, some people feel they can't do mediations if they're not doing it through a certified person. No one has told them, look, that is for that process. If you want it enforceable as a court decree, if that agreement has to be such, yes, you can always choose whom you want. No one can stop you from doing that. The only thing is it's a contract, and why would you break that contract? I mean, it's your
Right.
settlement. You've got it
Right.
together. But again,
But
look,
then people don't even think of that. They don't think, let me have a person to help me. They think, let me get a lawyer to fight,
yes, so
attack. It's all attack mode.
so
Attack
that's
and defend.
exactly. So look, that's an approach to life, and that approach of life has happened for various reasons, and we don't know. I mean, like I said, to get into it will be our own activity, sociologists and psychologists and I don't know who all will
Yeah,
be
it's a
involved in
very
that process.
unhealthy approach to life.
Yeah, so the whole idea being that instead of going into the theory part of it and why it has happened, let's just connect to those people who are actually maybe in the first instance
Yeah,
think differently on this, and then
right.
connect the
So that's
others.
what I can do. I have, the website is up. It's starting. It's
Yep.
starting here in Lake Mary, Florida.
So the important thing is
Little
that
by
at least
little, I'll make my strides.
exactly. But I'm saying at least you should approach with whoever you can and say, okay, you have a dispute. Let me help you resolve it. Let me reach out to
Mhm.
the other side. The issue of that fees part of it. Tell them, okay, what does that dispute really mean to you in terms of if I can get it resolved, what does that mean to you in what value terms? Let them say, okay, this much. Okay, if it gets settled, this is the amount you can pay me. If it doesn't get settled, I will still leave it to you. If you the process that I've taken you through, if it's benefited you in any way, whatever, I leave it to you. To start with is much better than not doing anything there and thinking that yes, people would come in because they feel they should do it, because a lot of nice words are put out about how it's good to resolve things amicably and everything, but it doesn't actually touch that person within where they can actually think of it because they haven't experienced it. They
Mhm.
don't think it is possible. People don't think it's possible. That's the point. That should have, over the years, people should have gone back, like I said, from mediations, if they were happening in the court system for so many years, they should have gone back and given that feedback. Oh, this is really good. So there's an issue there because they're not going back and
Yes,
saying that. So this
right.
is something they have to experience with you. So even look, I mean, I say young people, this again, let me go back to the mediation circles. These people that I'm talking about as peacemakers, or even the younger people with that mediator mindset, I tell them, you go out and talk to people about their disputes, and you find out someone has a dispute, tell them they should take this approach. They might not trust you because, okay, oh, you're too young, we don't know, can you really help us? No, I have Elyse. I'll call her in, and they work with you. So they're not really. It's like a co-mediation. It's not them sitting in
Mhm.
that as spectators. I don't want that to happen because look, even a young person, in terms of wisdom part of it, wisdom has nothing to do with age. It is your own mind where it how you that's developing. So they should be participating as co-mediators. So they go out. So imagine that army of people that you have out there who are actually going out, talking about it, bringing people into the process. So just start that process. So when you talk about getting people into the circle, you're telling them to do this, that, okay, go out, talk to people, spread the word. I am there. I'll come in when you want, fix a Zoom meeting. I'll be available. And that's how the whole thing can be. Just every day, the people you can speak to, and just get the thing
Yeah.
out. Just get it going.
Yeah. When you were on the phone with it was Andrani, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Is that how that's pronounced? I'm not sure if you heard what I was talking about when I was talking about the schools and school presentation. It's something that I talk about with my son regularly because every once in a while I'll tell him about my work because he's interested. And I was talking about the skit and peacemakers and things like that, and he thought it was really cool. And even just that alone, I would hope that that plants a seed for him of
No,
I can be this person.
yes, he has to be involved. At least he has to be involved. We have to take him in. We'll talk to him about it. They'll give us the direction because they connect with it. They know those children who connect with it. That will be their little circle, which will grow as
Mhm.
we go along. It'll all happen. So this
Yep.
is one of those times when we have to wrap up and do your closing remarks as you would, please.
My closing remarks, I think I would like to see change. I would like to help change happen. And I would hope that you would trust me when I say that I'm regularly thinking about it and it's important to me. It's close to my heart. So I'll be here for the long run for conflict resolution.
Great. So that's good.
Yeah.
And then you can say hi to Indrani. Indrani might not show us her face, but she's there. Her mic is unmuted. That's a
Yes.
good sign. That's a very good sign, Indrani.
Hi there.
John.
Is it Elsie? Yes, I love your
Elise,
background.
Elise.
Uh, yes, beautiful background. And what little I managed to hear was certainly bravo.
Thank you.
It's a clap. Yeah.
She
Awesome.
has very good
Thank you.
thoughts, and she's a wonderful person. And she was part of that symposium on language and mediation, and I just liked her. Just the way that she brought her authentic self into it was very nice. And Indrani is in South Africa. That you can watch. She was in that series, that In Conversation with the Beautiful Mind. She's been part of that. She doesn't like to show her face too much. That's one problem that we face with her.
No, we're going through such a torrid time with load shedding that I have to conserve power wherever we can.
Okay, what I'm doing is I'm
Yeah.
going to just, you can keep talking. I'm just stopping